Hi, it's Splinterverse. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at one of the products that's been sent to us. It's called Bound to Dread Warlock Customization. It's by Christopher Cevasco. It says, give your Warlock a distinctive flair with patron customization options for Dark Lords and other denizens of Ravenloft's domains of dread. So looking inside, you can see that the author was inspired by some 5th edition material, but also 3rd edition and 2nd edition. So this author's familiarity with Ravenloft goes way back, which is helpful because not all of the material from those older editions has made its way to 5th. So I like that the author has taken some time and studied some of the older stuff. I know a lot of people have a fondness for that older material, so it's great to see it worked into some of the newer stuff. And then, as always with books, it's a great idea to take a look at some of the artists that are involved, support them where you can, maybe find their Twitter or their Instagram and give it a look. So the author's done a great job of listing all of the different artists involved as well. So very nice. And then here's the contents page. You can see there's a preface and then some otherworldly patrons, so basically some new subclasses. We're going to take a look at one of those. So these are brand new subclasses for the Warlock. And then here are all the patrons, the specific patrons. We'll talk about that in just a second. And then we've got the bestiary with some new beasts to deal with, as well as lists to help you find quickly some of the patrons in the book. So the concept is that you would pick a subclass either from here or one of the printed books from Wizards of the Coast, and then once you've done that, you would pick a patron that is either closely associated with the domain of dread that you're going to be visiting as your character, or just that you like, with your DM's participation, of course. And so you see here they've got Barovia, St. Angela of Barovia, so a specific patron for that domain of dread, and it goes through all the different domains of dread here, or at least a lot of them. I'm not sure it's every single one, but a lot of them here, so that you have some good options. And what's nice about that is a lot of times with these Warlock patrons, it's very generic. It's the genie, or it's this, or it's that. And yes, the character can write a backstory, or the DM can write a backstory, but what this is attempting to do is to give you that backstory a little bit by giving you more detail, giving a name to your patron. And then what's even more interesting is not only is it giving you a name of a patron, but it's giving you customization. So once you've picked this particular patron, your subclass changes slightly to represent that patron, which I think is a really interesting idea. So we're going to be looking at a couple of those patrons here shortly. And then in the bestiary, you've got several options, including the Nautolith, the Rooster, the Weresnake, and the Zombie Parrot. And all of these seem to be appropriate for, if you've got Pact of the Chain as a Warlock, they can be your sort of familiar as well, which is fun. So lots of good stuff for Warlocks in this book. Here, this is from the back of the book. This shows you all the patrons by name and then by Warlock subclass. And I wanted to show this because I wanted you to see. So the Ascended Hero, Elemental, those are new to this book, as well as the Transcendent Flora. But they have these patrons like the Archfey, the Fathomless, the Fiend, the Hexblade that we're familiar with from other Wizards of the Coast books, right? So it's not just going to supplement the subclasses in this book, but the Wizards books as well, which is really cool. So, and you can see there's a lot for the undead because, of course, the Ravenloft Dark Lords are very appropriate to be related to the undead or the undying here. So you're going to see a lot there, but still, they've got it spread out among a lot of the different subclasses, which is really fun. So we're going to take a look at just one of the 3 subclasses because we don't want to give it all away. We want you to go and support this creator and buy the book. So this one's called the Elemental. It says, you have made your Warlock pact with an exceptionally powerful elemental being. These beings are the purest living forms of the 4 basic elements, air, earth, fire, and water, along with other elements arising from their combination or transformation. Your pact with such a being allows you to harness something of that primordial might, giving you deeper insight into the fundamental energies that permeate the inner planes and provide the building blocks from which every world of the material plane was made. You even come to understand something of the unbridled chaos that enfolds all the elemental planes like a metaphysical barrier between them and the outer planes, and through which tendrils of energy from the very outermost positive and negative energy planes permeate. So this is really fun because it's got all the elemental connections, but it's got some planar connections too. So as a DM or a character who likes to storytell, you can weave this in. So you get an expanded spell list. So it says the elemental lets you choose from an expanded list of spells. When you learn a spell, the following are added to the Warlock spell list. So you've got things like Absorb Elements, which makes perfect sense, right? An elemental weapon, Conjure Minor Elemental, Conjure Elemental, and some other fun spells in here too. And then it says there's a caveat on some of these with the Conjure the Elementals. You can only conjure elementals of the same type as your patron based on its planar affinity. And then they have a table for that. Further, when you reach 11th level in this class, you may add the Primordial Ward spell to those 6th level spells from which you may choose an Arcanum. And when you reach 15th level, you may add the Control Weather spell to those 8th level spells from which you may choose. So, very cool. Mixing it up, giving you some elemental spells, which is very thematic with this subclass. And then they've got a variant where you have signature elemental spells. So if your patron typifies a particular element, then you can replace some of the spells with particular ones. So you can see there's more wind-focused ones for the air and water-focused ones for water, etc. And then there's the border patrons, so para-elementals, where you can choose from 2 tables and mix it up. So lots of options, lots of different directions to go. I think that's really very thoughtful of the author because it's covering so many bases here for you to really role play and storytell and come up with backstories and all that good stuff. So Elemental Ovate, starting at 1st level, you learn the Druidcraft cantrip, which counts as a Warlock cantrip for you, but does not count against your number of cantrips known. Additionally, you learn the Primordial Language, and you gain proficiency with Alchemist supplies. So those are some really good things to have at 1st level. Primal Resistance, the crash of a wave, the crack of lightning, the boom of falling stone, or the explosive pop of burning wood. Any of these might create a concussive burst of sound, and if magically magnified, might well be capable of causing harm. Beginning at 1st level, however, you are resistant to thunder damage, affording you a degree of protection against such threats. So very cool. Primordial Battle Magic, beginning at 6th level, you have significant experience interacting with elementals, particularly in battle. You have advantage on intelligence checks to recall information about elementals, and you deal a bonus of +4 force damage whenever you hit an elemental with a spell attack. Your weapon attacks against elementals are considered magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks. Additionally, you have advantage on saving throws against spells and abilities used by any elemental. So, very appropriate, connecting you again to the elementals, giving you some protection and some story possibility because, again, you're having a better time communicating, interacting with these elementals than other people might. So makes perfect sense. Elemental Deepening, beginning at 10th level, your resistance to thunder damage becomes immunity, and you gain resistance to one other damage type of your choice. You must choose one of the following damage types set forth on the following table, which represents a deepening connection to your patron's affinity with a particular plane. So if your patron's planar affinity is air, then you have to choose either cold, fire, or lightning. So very cool. And then they've got lots of other examples here, and it talks about quasi-elemental planes like lightning and vacuum. So very detailed, lots of planar connections here. So if you're looking to create a planar campaign, this could fit in perfectly. Or just want some elemental goodness in your campaign, this could work as well. And then you've got Myrmidon Binding. When you reach 14th level in this class, you gain the ability to perform a 1-hour ritual that creates a magical suit of plate armor into which an elemental myrmidon is conjured and bound to your service. It exists only to follow your commands, but banishes when it drops to 0 hit points or after 1 hour. In combat, roll initiative for the Myrmidon, which has its own turn. When you summon it, and on each of your turns thereafter, you can issue a verbal command requiring no action on your part, telling it what it must do on its next turn. If you issue no command, it spends its turn attacking any creature within reach that has attacked it. The Myrmidon must be of the elemental type most closely associated with your patron's plane of primary affinity, as per the table below. So, very cool list here of different elemental types that would be connected to your Myrmidon. And it says once you use this feature, you cannot use it again until you finish a long rest. So that's a fun option. Bringing in this creature, you do need Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes to get the stat block, but a lot of people have that book by now. So very fun and thematic. And I like the art. I like the layout that the author is using. I think there's some fun elemental pictures in here to stimulate your imagination as you're building this character. And so what I wanted to do by picking this elemental is to now pick a patron that goes with that class, because the author has listed for each of these patrons a preferred subclass that connects to it. So now we can see how everything we've just read is about to change a little bit, get tweaked and customized as a result of picking this patron. So we've got 𝙎𝙪𝙘𝙬𝙧, the Morning Rail, the connection between the domains of Dread, Ravenloft, Shadowfell, and Eberron. So you can have this be an Eberron or Ravenloft or both. And they've got a fun little quote here on the top here. But I love that it's connected to both those settings. And throughout this book, you'll see a lot of that. Which is really helpful, because then if you're going to deal with Ravnica or Forgotten Realms as well as Ravenloft, you have those options. So it says, the disaster that came to be known as the Morning haunts the world of Eberron, having killed nearly the entire population of that world's land of Sire. Some few on the outskirts of Sire saw the disaster coming as the gray mist spread outward toward them, and they desperately sought some means of escape. The elemental lightning engines provided one such method, and terrified citizens of the capital city of Metrol packed the passenger cars of the city's last lightning rail, 𝙎𝙪𝙘𝙬𝙧, but the train's departure was delayed by the demands of a late-arriving VIP who forced hundreds of passengers off the train so as to maintain a shroud of secrecy over their own identity and to accommodate their personal retinue. When 𝙎𝙪𝙘𝙬𝙧 at last departed the station, it was too late. The mist claimed the train and all aboard it, transforming it into its own domain of dread that now hurtles endlessly through the realms of Ravenloft. So you see you're getting a ton of lore as well in this book, which I think is awesome. Its passengers still believe they have a chance of escape, unaware of the fact that they are all already dead. Meanwhile, in the Morning Rail's foremost carriage, the enigmatic last passenger sits, unmoving, apart from those rare moments when the train slows as it comes into a misty station to take on passengers, newcomers who are inevitably seeking a means of escape from other disasters and horrific events in their lands. The last passenger welcomes all such riders, their souls helping to fuel the necrotic energies that infuse the engine's elemental spirit. Only the rarest sort of passenger ever leaves the train, those deemed worthy by the last passenger to be the beneficiary of a Warlock pack. So very thematic, very tied into elemental, and you've got some necrotic energy as well. And it explains how that Dark Lord, the last passenger, connects to this Warlock class, and that's maybe how you get off this train. So each of the Dark Lords or patrons in this book have this little box here, and it says, if you make your Warlock pack with the last passenger, choose the elemental subclass detailed in this guide. Select lightning options whenever available via the subclass features, and apply the following customizations to the subclass features. So you'll see this box repeated with different subclasses, so it tells you which one you should pick so that you can customize. It says, the wider goals of the last passenger are entirely unknown, perhaps unknowable. In the short term, however, this Dark Lord seems to want nothing more than new passengers who become components in whatever ongoing necromantic ritual the train's passage represents. So it gives you kind of an angle for story, what the patron's after, and each, we're just looking at this one patron right now, but all of the patrons in this book have this. It says special terms of the pact. When the last passenger offers a Warlock pact, the Warlock is given several train tickets and is instructed to give those tickets to any they encounter, those desperate to escape their environment. Ticket holders intuitively know where they must go to await for the arrival of the morning rail and the eerie cry of all aboard. So if you choose this class, you're kind of recruited into trapping people on this train, which is, again, a fun story point. Binding marks and traits. Warlocks of the last passenger give off a faint odor of ozone and machine oil, scents associated with Eberron's lightning rails, but beneath both these odors, a faint whiff of death and decay might be detected. Many also manifest the Mistwalker dark gift. So some options to distinguish your character: make it have a different smell. Maybe it has a dark gift if the DM allows that. So some cool options there. It says Warlock Interactions. The last passenger has no further communication with Warlocks once they leave the train, but should a Warlock ever require more tickets to distribute to potential Sire 1313 passengers, the Warlock need only complete a long rest while clutching a single platinum coin in one hand, and upon waking, the coin will have been replaced with the number of tickets. So, fun little story point as well. You get to make your own tickets for this evil train that people are traveling on. I guess I shouldn't say evil. It is a trap, but it may not be entirely evil. So very fun there. It says goads. Should one of the last passengers' warlocks ever do anything to greatly displease their patron, for example, divulging any secrets about the last passenger's identity or methods, the morning rail itself will manifest when the warlock least expects it. Perhaps on some dark and lonely night, such warlocks might hear a faint train whistle in the distance moments before the ghost train emerges from the mist to run them over. Goodness. So that could be a story point too. Maybe the warlock has to do something in the campaign that requires them to divulge something, and then there you go. It's causing this train to show up and make the whole party have to deal with it. So could be fun. There's no particular boons, but there are some in this book for different patrons. And then optional abilities. Warlocks of the last passenger may add the following spells to those on the elemental expanded spells list. So you've got some interesting options here, like Pass Without Trace, kind of reminds you of a ghostly train, I guess, and then Steel Wind Strike. So thematic, very thematic. It says the last passenger's warlocks also gain access to 3 Eldritch invocations. When a class feature allows you to choose Eldritch invocations, you may, with DM approval, include these among from which you can choose. So Mind the Gap. You can cast Guardian of Faith without using a spell slot, but the Guardian always resembles an indistinct sword and shield emblazoned with the mark of passage. See dragon marks, and it deals necrotic rather than radiant damage. Once you do so, you can't rest or can't cast it in this way again until you finish a long rest. So cool, and the name is very thematic with trains, and you can see this cool picture of the train and then the ticket. I'm not going to read all the invocations, but you can see that's a customization because you pick this particular patron. And the customizations aren't always invocations. It varies in this book, but we're not going to show you all of them because we want you to purchase it and enjoy discovering them all for yourself. We will show the beginning of one more because I do want to at least let you see how the backgrounds of these patrons vary from patron to patron. So this one's for Darkon. It's 𝙎𝙤𝙘𝙪𝙧, Eternal Shadow. The dread domain of Darkon is slowly being consumed once the prison of the reclusive Dark Lord Lich, known as 𝙎𝙬𝙘𝙪𝙧. This region of Ravenloft began to dissolve into the mists surrounding the domain, following 𝙎𝙬𝙘's final magical attempt to free himself from the dark power's grip. This event came to be known as the Hour of Ascension, and it shook the entire domain. The ravenous mists that began to divide and slowly envelop its lands are now known throughout Darkon as the Shroud. Humanoids that die within the shrouded domain inevitably rise as mindless undead with the setting of the sun. Lying at the focal point of the Hour of Ascension, 𝙎𝙬𝙘's castle Avernus exploded in an eruption of otherworldly flame, but that explosion froze partway through the blast, and the castle now hangs suspended in disjointed sections and chambers, many still inhabited by his former servants. Among these servants is the black shadow dragon 𝙎𝙬𝙘𝙪𝙧, a native-born resident of the Shadowfell who had been 𝙎𝙬𝙘's trusted advisor. Caught up in the arcane explosion, the unleashed magic transformed 𝙎𝙗𝙘𝙧 into something more, deepening the dragon's connection to Ravenloft and allowing 𝙎𝙗𝙘𝙧 to draw upon those dark energies that suffuse the domains of dread. 𝙎𝙗𝙧 stopped aging and is now a seemingly eternal being of shadow, but the dragon nonetheless recognizes there is no escaping the fate of 𝙤𝙗𝙗𝙗, the cessation of existence that will come when the shroud finally consumes the domain in its entirety. So, and then it says, if you make a pact with 𝙎𝙗𝙧, choose the Undying subclass detailed in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide and apply the following customizations. So, as we saw previously, you've got goals, you've got goads, boons potentially, customization to the subclass itself. So I think that's really fun. Love this artwork. There's beautiful artwork all throughout, very nicely laid out. I like this style of listing the domain names as well. So lots of fun things in here to enjoy as far as the patrons go, and they're all different. Lots of lore. You just read a ton of, heard a ton of lore here, so I like that. So we're going to look just briefly at a piece of one of the beasts, because again, don't want to give everything away. So this is the Nautolith. Nautoliths are vermin that often infest Mind Flayer colonies and Nautiloid ships, and are found in great numbers in Ravenloft's domain of 𝙤𝙬𝙘𝙪𝙧, both on the slopes of Mount Macabre and in less frequented sections of Citadel subterrane. They resemble aquatic nautiluses, but for the exposed, brain-like organ pulsing above their eyes and dangling tentacles. Nautiluses hover even when sleeping, nests in hidden recesses, and move out to feed when least likely to be detected. They do not require oxygen, allowing them to thrive in air, underwater, and even in space's vacuum. And there's more lore for this one. I'm just giving you a taste, but I like the artwork. And so we're going to just look at one of the actions for the Nautolith, but there's several. Tentacles, it's a melee weapon attack, and it does psychic damage, and the target is grappled. Until this grapple ends, the Nautolith can't use its tentacles on another target. Each round that target remains grappled, it suffers an additional psychic damage. Whenever the Nautolith deals damage, it regains half as many hit points, rounding down up to its hit point maximum. Owing to an anesthetizing toxin coating a Nautolith's tentacles, surprise targets fail to notice they have been hit with an attack unless they succeed on a wisdom perception check, which must be made at disadvantage. The grappled target can repeat this check at the end of each of its turns. The target's allies might spot the Nautolith using their own powers of perception. So that's very fun little action. You may not even notice this thing has latched onto you, and maybe your party has to tell you there's this weird thing on your head or whatever, wherever it's attached. So that could be a lot of fun. So yeah, very cool. Like that. And that's just one of the actions. I like the other ones that were in the stat block that I looked at as well. So again, here's all the different patrons. You can see tons of locations that you can mess around with and bring in these characters, and all these beasts that are appropriate either as an adversary or Pact of the Chain familiar. So very fun there. And then of course you've got 3 subclasses to enjoy as well. So the book is, as of this recording, priced at $6.95, and it's 67 pages. So good price and good amount of pages with awesome art. So I recommend checking it out. We have it linked in the video description. If you click that link and purchase it, we do get a small percentage as a affiliate. So we're very appreciative of that. Also, if you purchase anything, once you've clicked that link, we'll get a small percentage to help support the channel. So we do hope you check it out. Also check out Christopher Cevasco's other work. Christopher does have another one associated, very similar to this book, but associated with Avernus and a bunch of other great titles. So check it out on DM's Guild. If you've got a title you'd like us to consider for a video review on the channel, please see the video description for a link to our Google form where you can submit your title. We can't promise we're going to cover every single title we receive, but we do appreciate receiving them and having the opportunity to consider your work. If you'd like to support the channel, consider purchasing one of our books. We've got Van Richten's Librem of Lineages with truly unique lineages for any setting, as well as optional rules to help you deal with lineages in your campaign And we've got Potions Unlocked, which is over 100 pages in both digital and print-on-demand format. Tons of new potions with a short story for each one explaining its origin, as well as potion locations, plants, etc. There's even a magic school in there where you can learn to do potions, so it's perfect if you're using Strixhaven. And we've got the Feywild Companion, which is over 150 pages of Feywild fun for both DMs and players. You've got complete adventures, encounters, brand new creatures, lots of Fey creatures, as well as a subclass for every single class, spells, magic items, you name it. It even includes rules on how to alter monster size and keep them balanced. Then we've got Fizban's Vault of Draconic Secrets, tons of dragon-themed player content with a subclass for each class, draconic gifts, magic items, trinkets, and adventure hooks to tie everything together for the DM to incorporate all the new stuff in the book into the campaign. Or if you're just a player, you can use those adventure hooks to maybe fill out your backstory as well. So we hope you've enjoyed today's video. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave us a comment. We'll respond to all those comments. Follow us on Twitter at Splinterverse, and stay tuned because we have so much more fun D&D content headed your way. And until next time, happy adventuring.